Hello and welcome to our NDIS information session on assistive technology. This session is designed for NDIS participants, their families and carers. The material in today's information session is general in nature. Information provided in presentations by the NDIS is considered to be true and correct at the time the presentation was presented or recorded, and changes in circumstances after the time of the presentation or recording may impact the accuracy of this information. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the country on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I would also like to extend that acknowledgement and respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders watching our presentation today. Our accessibility features today include Auslan, and we have live captions available. In this presentation, we will cover what assistive technology is, assessments, advice and trialling assistive technology, assistive technology risk, and repairs, maintenance or replacements. During the presentation, I will refer to assistive technology as AT. What is AT? AT is equipment or devices that help a person do things they can't do because of their disability. AT may also help a person to do something more easily or safely. AT involves things designed to improve a participant's daily life and to help them do everyday things. We make decisions about including AT in a plan based on the cost of the item. We put the cost of assistive technology into 3 categories. Low cost AT is under $1,500 per item. Low-cost items are easy to set up and use and available from local suppliers. The funding for low-cost AT is included in the core consumable section of an NDIS budget. Some examples of low-cost AT include adaptive cutlery, visual doorbell alerts, walking sticks, and basic shower chairs. Next, we have mid-cost AT. This is between $1,500 and $15,000 per item. Mid-cost items may be more difficult for a participant to choose and set up on their own to get the best outcome. Mid-cost AT funding is included in the capital budget in a participant's plan. This will generally be a broad category. For example, the plan might say funding provided for a wheeled shower commode with a price range of $1,500 to $3,500. Other examples of mid-cost items: a standing hoist, alternative communication devices, manual wheelchairs, or pressure care mattresses. Our next category is high-cost AT. This is items over $15,000 each. High-cost items are complex and need individual assessments to make sure it's the right solution for the participant's needs. They need specialised knowledge or tools to set them up. They may be custom made for a participant's individual needs and need a quote so that we can include the right amount of funding in the participant's plan. The capital section of a participant's plan shows their high cost AT. It may specify the type of AT they need to buy and may also say quote required. Some examples include a wheeled, custom-made wheelchair for the participant, some complex communication devices, and many prosthetics. All NDIS supports must meet the reasonable and necessary criteria, and this is no different for assistive technology. When we think about AT, we'll ask participants, does the AT relate to their disability? Is the AT right for them? Is the AT they need value for money? Is the AT funded or provided by someone else? For example, a workplace adjustment may actually be the responsibility of your employer. And not all equipment or technology is AT. We don't fund general items that everyone needs. Many people use some equipment as part of their everyday lives. For example, a standard microwave oven to cook food. We might fund the additional cost of adapting general items for the person's disability. AT is only the equipment a person needs because it helps them do things that they can't normally do because of their disability. And we don't include home equipment that everyone uses that isn't related to a person's disability, like a standard kettle. We don't include items for treatment or rehabilitation. That is the responsibility of the health system. We don't include changes to public spaces like footpaths or changes to public vehicles such as buses or taxis. And we don't include therapy tools that are used by therapists. AT needs to help the participant to pursue their goals and to help with their disability support needs. We will need to know that the AT is the right item for the participant's needs, that it's safe to use and it meets the relevant Australian or international standards where possible, that it does all the things that it needs to do, and it also works in all the places that it is used. The assistive technology we fund must be value for money compared to other AT or supports that would achieve the same outcome. We check the cost of the AT item to a price range in the market of a similar item. This helps us understand if the proposed item is more expensive than similar devices and services in the market. We use this expected price range alongside evidence provided to us to help us decide how much funding to include in a plan. We look at if a less expensive item would do the same job, how long the AT will last, any maintenance or repairs that the item might need, and whether it may be less expensive to hire for the time the AT is needed. And this may be because the participant only needs it for a short time. Participants can pay from their own money for extra features or cosmetic features such as metallic paint or personalised upholstery for a wheelchair. These customisations are not considered reasonable and necessary and are an additional to the essential components. We can help participants to work out whose job it is to fund or provide equipment and find out how to get it from the right provider or scheme. We can't fund AT when another organisation is responsible. And this includes any equipment that a participant needs in hospital or that a participant's employer must provide for them to do their job. If we decide AT supports don't meet all NDIS funding criteria, we can't include them in a participant's plan. We will give the participant written reasons why we made the decision. If a participant doesn't agree with a decision, they can ask for an internal review within 3 months of that decision. Assessments, advice and trialling AT. We suggest participants get advice before they buy any AT. This will make sure the item is right for them. And participants are required to get written advice for mid-cost AT and reports for high-cost AT. If a participant buys the wrong AT without getting advice, we won't usually pay for another item. There are a range of skilled and qualified people who are able to provide advice about assistive technology. These people are known as AT advisors and AT assessors. Firstly, AT advisors can be allied health professionals, assistive technology mentors who have a recognised qualification in assistive technology advice or Cert 4. They can be orientation and mobility specialists for the vision sector. They can be specialist continence nurses or rehabilitation engineers. GPs and specialists can also be advisors for equipment such as CPAP and ventilators. And participants may also need to get an assessment from an assistive technology assessor. AT assessors are specialist AT advisors. They need to have a university degree or equivalent that is relevant to providing AT assessments. They also need to be working within the standards set by a professional registration organisation, such as the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency. They will tell participants what sort of advice they need before they buy their AT. And for all high-cost items, participants need to get a written assessment before we can include it in their plan. An assessment needs to be done before buying the item. And this is to make sure that high-cost or complex items are appropriate, safe to use, and are expected to give long-term benefits for the participant. The NDIA can include funding for AT advice or AT assessments for participants with a clear need for AT. Now, this may be to explore AT options or to look at specific AT solutions, or it could be to prepare evidence or an assessment. For low-cost AT, $500 is funded in the capacity building budget for advice or assessments to help a participant choose the right item for them. For mid and high-cost AT, more funding is available for advice and assessments, and the AT advisor or assessor must provide written advice before the AT is purchased. For some AT, particularly the mid and higher cost AT, the NDIA requires evidence to decide if the proposed item is a reasonable and necessary support. For AT valued above $15,000, we have templates available on the website. And these templates are designed to help assessors and participants provide the correct information to help the NDIA determine the appropriate supports to include in a plan. And using these templates ensures the NDIA has all of the information required for planning and approval, and it helps avoid delays. And the structure of these templates may also be helpful when providing evidence for AT valued less than $15,000. A participant or their nominee can choose the providers they want to deliver the AT unless the plan indicates otherwise. Specialised providers may be required to support the implementation of higher cost AT, for example, fitting and training in the use of certain equipment. It is important that the participant chooses the right provider for them, and they should understand their plan and budgeted supports before starting to choose their providers. Participants should also obtain in writing from their providers an agreed cost and how they want the AT provided, including any setup that's required. And also ask about how to keep the AT working well. For example, a maintenance plan, or what to do if repairs are required. An NDIS participant can use the provider finder on our website and in the My Place portal to search and filter for providers. Participants may also want to research a provider's services on the internet, check the reviews and get advice from families and friends, or speak with different providers, either face-to-face or over the phone, before deciding. Short-term or flexible AT options can support participants to find the best outcomes for their AT needs. Some of these options include rental or hire to trial the item. There are subscription services and trials which may lead to purchases or alternative product choices. There are also equipment pools and equipment libraries available. And sometimes it may be better to rent AT rather than buy it. We may include funding in a plan to rent AT if a participant can't use their regular AT at any time, can't use their current AT anymore, they're waiting for their new item to arrive, if they have left hospital and are waiting for an assessment on their long-term needs, or if they need new high-cost assistive technology, but as part of the assessment, there is a need to trial and test some options. Also, if needs are likely to change, so it's better than buying the assistive technology. For example, we may consider that renting AT is better value for money for a child, where the child is likely to outgrow the technology within a short period of time, or for participants with degenerative conditions that change rapidly. If a participant needs funding to trial mid-cost AT, a quote is not required, but they need to tell us why the item needs to be trialled and for how long. For short-term trials, funding is placed in the core consumables budget. Some providers, however, will let participants trial AT for no cost. For longer trials, funding is placed in the capital AT budget. And if a trial has a cost, participants can also ask the provider if the price of the AT is discounted if purchased after paying for the trial. And for higher cost AT, we strongly recommend any proposed trial is put to the NDIA for approval so the funding and the requirements can be agreed. Some AT would not meet the current reasonable and necessary tests for some participants, such as where there is a higher risk or long-term harm. To provide information on AT, participants should bring evidence along to their next planning meeting or check-in, keep a copy of their advice, or they can upload it to the NDIS portal, and they can send assessments and quotes to us at our email address. We will now cover AT risk. AT ranges from simple products to complex devices, and we use two product risk categories, low and high, to assess the complexity of a participant's AT needs. Low risk AT products are unlikely to cause harm in day-to-day life. They're available for trial, or they can be purchased in a retail store, and they're easy to set up and safe to use without professional advice. Higher risk AT products may be one or all of the following. They may be complex, such as powered wheelchairs or motorised ceiling hoists. They may be known to have caused harm or are used as a restrictive practice, or if it requires professional advice, setup or training to use safely. The Assistive Technology product risk table that is available on our website shows how the NDIS tries to manage AT risk, including what advice a participant should get for each category. The AT operational guideline helps us to align the NDIA's approach to product risk with that of the Therapeutic Goods Administration, that's known as the TGA, who is a key market regulator. Low-risk AT products are products that can be chosen by the participant or their family, and they need very little advice or setup. There is a low risk of causing harm when used in daily living environments. Higher risk AT will generally require advice from an assistive technology advisor or assessor to ensure that the right item selection and good outcomes. Items that are currently regulated by the TGA in Australia are considered higher risk. And we also rely on information from the NDIS, Quality and Safeguards Commission. Our staff will include funding for AT advice for all participants who are considering or needing AT, and that includes for low cost and low risk categories. We provide extra funding for advice or assessment for mid or higher cost AT. Some examples of low risk AT include non-slip bath mats, adaptive cutlery, plates or other utensils, handrails, and portable ramps. Some examples of higher risk products. As we said earlier, some low cost products such as bed sticks or transfer aids can be considered high risk, and people have been injured when they weren't correctly set up or used. So some examples of higher risk products include bed rails, weighted blankets, powered devices for magnifications or hearing, motor vehicle adaptations, adjustable beds, prosthetics, and devices to support breathing. Next, we will cover repairs, maintenance, or replacement. Like other equipment, AT may need repairs, and we include funding for repairs and maintenance in a participant's plan for all AT items they are currently using. Participants don't need an assessment to have these funds included in their plan. For small repairs like a tyre puncture, we include funding in the core consumables budget. For major repairs like regular services, we include funding in the capital AT budget. And if a participant has any remaining funds available after they've purchased their AT, they can use these funds on the repairs and maintenance. It is important to consider whether a warranty is available for any AT items which require repair. Australian consumer law applies if something is wrong with the item, regardless of whether the AT has been leased or purchased. Participants should let us know if their repairs are expensive or if they are needed frequently. We may be able to discuss if a different AT support should be explored to meet their needs better. And urgent repairs. These mean repairs to AT that a participant depends on for their safety, for mobility or positioning, for communication, or to complete daily living activities. To ensure that participants can access urgent AT repairs, even without funding in their plan, the NDIS Contact Centre can assist with these situations. Participants can call the number directly. AT usually requires regular maintenance and care to keep it working well and to minimise any breakdowns. Participants should develop a maintenance schedule based on the manufacturer's advice and arrange for this to be carried out with either the supplier or another suitable AT provider. And participants are encouraged to consider a backup plan for times when their AT is being repaired or there is a delay in a provider completing the repair. This is especially important if a participant doesn't have an alternative support for AT that they cannot live safely without. For example, a ventilator, a transfer hoist, or a powered wheelchair. Participants should discuss these backup plans with their planner or their LAC when their plan is being developed, including who to call if the participant cannot contact their repairer, whether their families or friends can assist during these periods, and access to loan equipment while AT is being repaired. AT may need replacing when it doesn't work anymore, or if it keeps breaking down, if it's dangerous to keep using, or if a child has outgrown their AT, or if it's broken beyond repair. We can include some funding for replacement items in a participant's capital AT budget, and a full assessment may not be required for higher cost AT replacement where it is like for like, meaning you're purchasing the same equipment you had previously. We generally only replace items the participant got through the NDIS. To replace items, we need to know the participant was using the AT recently, the participant has the same support needs, and the participant does not expect changes to their support needs in the next 12 months. Further information about replacement AT, including evidence and quote requirements, is available on the NDIS website under Repairs, Maintenance and Replacement. The Assistive Technology Home Modifications and Consumables Code Guide lists the most commonly used AT supports. It's not a full list of all supports that may be provided, but it is a guide and a very useful guide. That brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation on assistive technology.